Welcome into the KC Sports Report. I'm Wyman Wheeler. Now, if you've watched the show before and you've noticed that I'm not Michael Darcy, the usual host, you're actually very smart and observant. That's because I'm not Michael Darcy. I'm a completely different person entirely. As I said, I'm Wyman Wheeler. All jokes aside, Michael has brought me on board to talk Chiefs with y'all this season, and I'm really, really excited to go through this season with all of you as the Chiefs search for that third Super Bowl in their quest for the three-peat. A little bit about me. I'm from beautiful, beautiful Northwest Missouri. Grew up on a farm life. I graduated last spring from Wichita State University, shockers up. And a fun fact about me, I'm actually a pretty big theater guy. Love the theater scene. So if you're the type of person who loves watching football, loves talking Chiefs, but also loves to take the weekends to go see the musicals and the plays and stuff in town like that, we'll actually have a lot to talk about because I'm one of those guys too. But enough about me. We're here to talk about the Chiefs. So let's get down to business. I don't know if you saw yesterday, but Jared Wiley, the fourth-round pick out of TCU, a tight end, made a very impressive catch in the end zone during red zone drills over Jalen Watson. And the clip of that catch went semi-viral on Chiefs Twitter. Now, this got people pretty excited, myself included. So I took the time to go take a look at the current depth chart and check out what the tight end room was looking like and seeing what Jared Wiley had to compete with thus far. So I took a look at the depth chart, and as we expected, it's a three-man room. Typically, it was last year. Right now, the room looks like Travis Kelce, my goat and yours. Tight end 2 is Noah the Gray Man Gray. And Jared Wiley, who again picked in the 2024 NFL Draft, was pick 131 in the fourth round, was tight end 3. Now, following those three players are three more tight ends. Undrafted free agents Jorquarius Spivey, Baylor Cupp, and surprise to me, right after Wiley on the depth chart is NFL veteran Irv Smith Jr. Now, Irv Smith Jr., he was a longtime Vikings player. He was drafted in 2019, and he just wrapped up a season with the Bengals. This spring, he actually ended up on the Chiefs. We brought him over from the Bengals. The Bengals had brought him in to kind of be one of their premier tight ends on their team to help out Joe Burrow, but things didn't quite end up working out in Irv Smith's favor, and they opted to go more on the younger side with a player like Tanner Hudson rather than Irv Smith. Now, I remember the last couple of years watching Irv Smith on the Vikings. I believe I had him on one of my fantasy teams, and he's a pretty solid player. He's not a tight end 1. He's typically a tight end 2, but he fits into systems really well. He can make contested catches. He's a big body. I have his measurements right here. He's 6'2". He weighs at about 243 pounds, so he can be pretty useful in the Chiefs' offense, but we already have a pretty packed tight end room already with, again, Travis Kelce, Gray, and Jared Wiley, who looks like he's going to fit into the tight end 3 spot, filling in for Blake Bell, the Bell Dozer, man out of Wichita, who is no longer with the team. So this episode, I kind of titled it, What's the Deal with Irv Smith Jr.? What's going on? Does he have a chance to make the roster? If he does make the roster, will he be a fourth tight end? And how will that affect the 53-man roster? So I wanted to look at Irv Smith's stats from last season with the Bengals. So he had 18 catches for 115 yards with an average of 6.4 yards per catch, which isn't, for a tight end 2, I would say it's not great, not horrible. Whenever he gets the ball, he's pretty consistent, gets you a pretty decent chunk of yards. I mean, if you, every time you get the ball, get around 6 yards, you're a pretty consistent, pretty valuable player, in my opinion. Irv Smith Jr. has not had many injury issues in the past. The only year he did miss was 2021. But again, he's a big body. usually pretty dependable. Now, when first constructing this video, I had it in my head that Smith and Wiley would be going head-to-head for that third spot on the roster in the tight end room. But with Wiley's stock rising with the team and Smith having a relatively quiet camp, I don't think it's out of the question that Smith is on the chopping block, and it's going to be an uphill battle for him to make this roster. Now, there is a possibility, in my opinion, that Smith does end up making the cut. If you remember, last year there was a lot of discussion about whether or not Andy Reid would feature a 7-man wide receiver room. And the reason that was a talking point was because Andy Reid had never done that in his tenure with the Kansas City Chiefs. So, as you know, that ended up being the case. And I got to thinking, is there a world where Andy Reid decides to bank on a big body and a vet presence and feature a 4-man tight end room whilst trimming off some of the fat that the wide receiver room has carried over from last season? I was doing some research going back in time to see if anything had been done like this under Reid's tenure before, and I went back to 2021 to find out that Reid featured a room of Kelsey, Gray, Bell, and Jody Fortson. So it's not a foreign concept to an Andy Reid offense. If you remember, Jody Fortson caught a couple of touchdowns early in that year before getting injured, unfortunately, in 2021. But so now I'm thinking there's actually a world where a tight end room with 4 people makes sense. So if that were the case, I wanted to dive into what it would look like, or really what I think it would look like on this team. So we'll start out on the offense. Typically on a 53-man roster, you like to have 25 players on the offense, 25 on the defense, and then 3 specialists, your kicker, your punter, and your long snapper. So of the 25 players on the offense, given a 4-man wide receiver tight end room, here's what I think would happen. So, quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, no contest. It's just, honestly, it's silly to bring up. But as QB2, I would have, at this moment, Carson Wentz, bringing in the vet presence. The problem with Carson Wentz is he's shown time and time again he's not very dependable. And so, depending on what happens in the next 2 preseason games, Carson Wentz may lose that spot to a player like Chris O, who is young and showing flashes, being very, very efficient outside of the play when the play breaks down. So moving on, right now I have Pacheco as the RB1 and Deneric Prince as RB2, given that CEH has missed some time. I'll go back into this. I don't have CEH on my roster. I don't know if that's an incredibly hot take. CEH has a lot of different opinions said about him. But anyway, again, tight end room, I have 4 people, Kelsey, Gray, Wiley, and Smith Jr. in this hypothetical scenario. In the wide receiver room, I have 6. To me, that's going to look like Brown, Worthy, Rice, Hardman, Watson, and I put Kadarius Toney. For me, it's hard to quit him, seeing and just knowing what he can do when he gets the ball in his hands. The problem is he's facing some injuries, and last year, you all know, was a complete disaster. So right now I have it as Kadarius Toney, but the Chiefs on the depth chart and in practice, they seem to be pretty high on Sky Moore, which makes no sense to me and many others, but that's where we are. So right now, in the wide receiver room, Brown, Worthy, Rice, Hardman, Watson, and Toney. On the O-line, I have Kingsley, Joe Thuney, Creed, Trey, Jawan Taylor, in that order, going from left tackle to right tackle. Filling in as backups, Wanye Morris, Hunter Norzad, Mike Caliendo, Lucas Niang, and CJ Hansen. And then preseason sensation, Carson Steele at fullback. Bring back the fullback position. Been a long time since we've had a fullback in Kansas City, 1 year. But everybody's excited about Carson Steele, myself included. I'm really looking forward to that guy. But that's what I think could happen if the Chiefs had a 4-man tight end room. Here's the thing, though. Is that very likely? I'm not sure. Going back to my exclusion of CEH. Realistically, I think it is more likely that the Chiefs keep CEH and the running backs consist of 3, Pacheco, CEH, and Prince. here's the thing. Chiefs fans, we have our issues with CEH. It often seems like he's a waste of an offensive down, but I think it's clear we've seen in training camp he's had some bouts with some PTSD, and he's missed time because of that. But the way that the team has surrounded around him and supported him, it kind of opened my eyes to see that really the most important thing about CEH to the team is he's a great locker room guy, and the team cares about him. So I think realistically, against my better judgment, again, the coaching staff of the Kansas City Chiefs obviously know more than I do. I think the Chiefs will keep CEH. They'll have that running back room looking like three, going in order: Pacheco, CEH, Prince with the fullback Carson Steele, and Smith will be cut from the roster. I don't think that's a big surprise to a lot of people. It's a bit of a bummer for Irv Smith. However, it was a long shot when he signed in KC for him to make the roster in the first place. But I'm rooting for him. If anybody's going to be the guy to defend Irv Smith Jr., I guess that's going to be me, and we'll see how it goes for him. But I want to know what you think down below in the comments. Is there any possibility, any reality that you see Irv Smith Jr. making this roster? I want to know. But that's all I have for today. Thank you for listening. Be on the lookout for more from the KC Sports Report. And with that, I'm Wyman Wheeler. Thanks for listening.